आज स्वागत नित्य गुरुवर संत शुभागम आइए, अध्यात्म विद्या दिव्य ज्योति सोमरस बरसाइए। दोष दुर्गुण दूर करके शुद्ध हंस बनाइए, भेद गम गति ज्ञान गर्जन शक्ति द्वार हटाइए। खुले द्वारा शब्द सागर भक्त जन अनहवाइए, जन सदा फल विश्व शिक्षक शान आन बचाइए, शान आन बचाइए। विश्व शांति नाम मंगल परम गुरु को ध्याइए, वर्ग द्वंद्व शांति दूर कर भाव भेद मिटाइए। सार्वभौम समष्टि सत्ता आत्मराज बनाइए, वेश भाषा भाव जगमय ज्ञान पर दर्शाइए। समृद्धि सुख शांति धरातल स्वर्ग भूमि बनाइए, विश्व शिक्षक जन सदा फल नीतीश्वर अपनाइए, नीतीश्वर अपनाइए।
Jai Sadgurudev to everyone. Thank you, Abhinavji. Today's bhajan describes the power of habit in the form of Seva, Satsang and Sadhna. There is a word used in this bhajan is called Vidhivat Sadhan. That is nothing but Seva, Satsang and Sadhna. The power of Vidhivat Sadhan is stated in this bhajan in the words of Sadguru Sadafal Devji Maharaj, where the eternal master Sadguru Sadafal Devji Maharaj, taking the responsibility of meeting ultimate aim of our life, once we adopt a habit of Seva, Satsang and Sadhana. Let's listen this bhajan. बोलिए सद्गुरुदेव भगवान की जय। अद्भुत मार्ग योग विहंगम, मैं तुमको बतलाऊंगा। यदि विधिवत तुम साधन करी हो, अमर लोक पहुँचाऊंगा। अद्भुत मार्ग प्रकृति आधार तो ही छोड़वाऊं निज स्वरूप ठहराऊंगा प्रकृति आधार तो ही छोड़वाऊं निज स्वरूप ठहराऊंगा सुरति उलट के गगन चढ़ाऊं सुरति उलट के गगन चढ़ाऊं डोरी मकर धराऊंगा अद्भुत मार्ग पिंड ब्रह्मांड शून्य जो 68 ताऊ पर बैठाऊंगा पिंड ब्रह्मांड शून्य जो 68 ताऊ पर बैठाऊंगा अनुभव दर से मोती बर से अनुभव दर से मोती बर से अमियन ध्यानवाऊंगा अद्भुत मार्ग शुद्ध रूप तो ही हंस बनाऊं परम पुरुष दिखलाऊंगा शुद्ध रूप तो ही हंस बनाऊं परम पुरुष दिखलाऊंगा वहाँ के दृश्य कौन मैं वर्णो वहाँ के दृश्य कौन मैं वर्णो वाणी बुद्धि न पाऊंगा अद्भुत मार्ग महाप्रभु अनंत दया में उनसे तो ही मिलाऊंगा महाप्रभु अनंत दया में उनसे तो ही मिलाऊंगा कहें सदा फल परमानंदा कहें सदा फल परमानंदा आवागमन मिटाऊंगा अद्भुत मार्ग योग विहंगम मैं तुमको बतलाऊंगा यदि विधिवत तुम साधन करी हो अमर लोक पहुँचाऊंगा अद्भुत मार्ग सद्गुरुदेव भगवान की जय।
Yeah, let's do it. Just so everyone, it seems like we had some technical issues earlier. Let me just double check if you can all hear us now. So if any of you can hear us, please shout out on one of our platforms. We're just trying to work through some technical issues. And once we're clear, we'll go ahead and have our Q&A session for the day. I apologize for the confusion. We apologize for the technical issues. It seems everything is all right now. So let's get into it. Let me just give a quick introduction to what we were trying to speak about today, which is the topic of the day, Secrets from Swadhyay, the power of habits, and the 4S framework. So habits, when you think of the word habits, many things come to mind, many questions, at least for me. What are good habits? What are bad habits? How do you develop habits? And at large, what does spirituality have to say about habits and where they come from? So we're joined today by two distinguished speakers, Subhashji from Singapore, who's working as an actuarial professional, as well as Vijayji from the US, who is working as an IT architect in Washington, DC. So thank you both for joining us. I hope you can both hear me.
Yes, Avinaji, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Lovely, lovely. All right, so let's get into it. And once again, I apologize to all of the listeners. I hope you've been able to stay patient with us. We'll be looking into what went wrong earlier after our today's session. So perhaps we could start with you, Subhashji. We have this idea of habits, and everyone has their own concept and idea of what a habit is. How would you define habits, and is there a link between habits and patterns of behavior? What is a habit?
Thank you very much, Avinaji. I think let's just start from the beginning itself. The habit, when we talk about habit, how the habit starts, basically it starts from the beginning when we are born, from that time itself. And most of our habits, in fact, all of our habits are linked with our sense organs. And habit is basically coming through the repetition of doing something or experiencing something on that basis. A very simple example, I talk about this specific example is when we eat, when we are eating our lunch, our breakfast, or our dinner. Why do we eat? Do we eat because we are hungry, or do we eat because for our taste, or do we eat because of our habit itself? So in my opinion, all three are true. So by this example, what I mean to say is habit is coming through the repetition work, and many times our sense organs are habituated about those activities, and repetitively when we do the same thing again and again and again and again, our body, our internal system, the mind is now habituated about those activities. And that's how whenever that time comes, whenever that feeling comes, whenever some specific situation appears in front of us, that habitual thing will automatically come in front of us. And that's how the habit creates. Habit doesn't mean that it is always on the bad side. We are talking about habits on the right side as well. As for example, if someone is having a habit of getting in the morning, say 5 o'clock, it's a habit. Habit means here the person at the beginning time would have started waking up in the morning 5 o'clock, or probably his or her parents have made him habituated to wake up in the morning 5 o'clock, even if that person did not want at that time point. But after a few days, few months, the person's body and the mind has accepted that activity automatically, so that whenever that time system comes, the body reacts on that, the mind reacts on that, and things happen on that basis. Definitely our habit is linked with our behavior, but here the mind and our intellect work together as well, because many times we feel that one particular habit is there, but our intellect or the mind can decide or think whether it should be reflected in the behavior or not. So there can be a controllability on that habit as well. But most of the time, what we have seen, in fact, you can see many people, especially when we talk about example of a smoker. Someone is smoking. Even if the person thinks, no, the smoking is not good for me, but out of habit, just out of habit, the person's behavior and the activity goes on that basis. Abhinavji.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think you've really touched on an important piece there, which is that in our body there's this topology of different entities which have different responsibilities, which we can become more attuned to as we go through our lives and our spiritual lifestyle, such as the mind and the intellect. And it seems like habits traverse a path between these different aspects of our existence, and they drive us to do certain things. Would you agree with that sentiment, Vijayji, as well? Do you believe that is perhaps a simplification of what Subhashji said, or do you think that's accurate?
Again, good evening from here. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Jai Sadgurudev, everyone. I'm very happy to be a speaker on this forum today. I agree with Subhashji. I mean, Subhashji put it beautifully, giving the DNA of an habit, how it is cultivated, and how it becomes a regular practice. And like he rightly said, everything, every action, or every deed that one does, habit is a part of the deed, is part of his day-to-day routine. And that's driven by mind and intellect. I mean, they play a very, very vital role. Let it be a good habit as well as a bad habit. Mind and intellect have a significant role.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think as we kind of start to unpack these, and you just mentioned good and bad habits, I'm wondering, in terms of good and bad, and how you determine what a good habit is and how you determine what a bad habit is, what would you say is, how would you say the Swadhyay and spirituality at large helps us define these boundaries between what is a good habit and what is a bad habit?
Excellent question. I can take that question, Abhinavji. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Good habit versus a bad habit. What's good, what's bad? It's a relative word, right? Like we all, there are certain things which are very, very clearly defined. Nobody would argue about it or differ, saying putting your arm in fire or standing at the edge of the cliff is a good habit. There's no discussion about it. We all know that's something bad. We know the constant addictions one have, let's say smoking, drinking, embezzling, any sort of things that cause harm to oneself more than anybody else. Of course, it does. Most of these acts which cause harm to others are also bad, because we as individuals, we are part of a society, and the society has certain responsibilities that one as an individual has to adhere to. Certain habits which are injurious or which cause detrimental things to oneself are all bad habits. And of course, good habits, like Subhashi mentioned, like be, waking up in the morning, exercising, meditating, enriching one's behavior, working on anger or bad vices. They're all good habits. The clear distinction between a good habit and a bad habit is something which Vihangam Yoga professes is that which gives complete happiness and permanent happiness. Anything that is transient in nature, though it gives you or makes you feel like you're having temporary pleasure, say, for example, I don't know, I mean, it's people say, hey, I drink because I enjoy. I have a lot of fun. I am free. I don't have any inhibitions, etc., etc. But even if that so-called happiness, if you want him to go with his claim, we know, and time has proven it many times that that's very, very transient. But the side effects or the consequences of such an habit are very, very detrimental to one's advancement and development. So basically, a good habit is something which provides permanent or everlasting happiness or satisfaction. Do you want to add anything, Subhashji?
Thank you, Vijayji and Avinaji, for this question. And yeah, Vijayji, you have explained it very nicely. I'm just trying to refer one couplet from Swarved, where Swamiji has mentioned about the mind. He said that Shuddha Ashuddha do bhed hai, mana hi avastha hoy, Indrina sang ashuddha hai, Shuddha soma rasa hoy. What he meant here is to say that the mind has two states. One is, he said, Shuddha and Ashuddha, the pure and impure. When the mind is all the times, most of the times, linked with the sense organs, it is considered to be the impure one. And when the mind is connected to the conscious entity, the soul, it is considered to be the pure one. When we talk about habit, in my opinion, in my understanding, what I understand is habit is a characteristic. Habit is a way of activity. So who does it? It's individual. The person is doing. When we talk about person is doing, what does that mean? Which entity of that person is doing that habit or doing that behavior? It's the body, any body part, the activity. Who is governing those activities? Probably it's the mind, which is governing with the help of the body or the sense organs. That means anything, whether it's out of habit, good or bad, or even any other behavior, whatever we are doing, that is actually being done with the help of the mind. When we talk about good and bad, as Vijayji mentioned, it's a very relative term. For one person, something can be good. For the same person or for the other person, the same good thing can be bad also. When we talk about good and bad, it depends on which frame we are at. If the frame is not identical to compare, it cannot be the same. If the frame of comparison means if one person's frame of understanding is different than the other, then the definition of good and bad for those two people would be different. And this frame can be defined on the basis of the state of the mind. If the person's mind is more linked with the sense organs only, not with that conscious entity, then his base would be different. And the other person who is more linked to that conscious entity, the soul side, then his base would be different. And I think the good and bad, to define it, would be based on that framework. Anything, say, there is one person who is waking up in the morning or doing some activities. All these things are based on the situational environment around that person, whether it's natural environment or it's forceful environment. But the habits are on the basis of what the person has from the inside. And that depends on how his mind works, how his intellect works, and how his framework is designed inside into him. Avinaji.
Yeah, definitely. I think you both touched on some very poignant points there. And, I'm sort of reflecting on myself as we're going through this. And I'm sure all of our listeners also kind of have this internal battle at some points in their lives where they're trying to decide what to do with their time. And, one thing I found fruitful, which I think leans into what both of you mentioned about having a longer term view of your joy and your source of happiness and perhaps your drive and purpose in life. Having this, I found that most of the people we look up to in our modern world, to me it seems like they have very specific things they want to achieve over a long period of time, and the things they do with their time, the habits they develop, they all seem to align with that longer term view. So I've met people who I'm very inspired by, who they have decided, okay, I'm at the age of 15, they may decide, okay, I want to work at this extremely good company because I want to have a good impact on the world. And then their entire life and all the things they decide to do with their life or the habits they form, they seem to align with that purpose. And this is also something we touched on last week in our session on time management, where, we were lucky to be joined by Dr. Subhash Chandra, as well as let me just remember, as well as Shekharji from Australia. And, we learned that having a sense of purpose is very important. And I think perhaps as we go further and we go to the next part of our conversation, it seems to me like purpose is a very big kind of driving factor for determining, is this habit good for me? Is this habit not good for me? Would you agree with that kind of sentiment, Subhashji?
Yeah, I think purpose is, of course, very important because, as I mentioned, it's linked to the environment around us also. Many times, if I talk about a kid who is very nice, very good kid, very good here, what I mean to say is he listens to his parents each and every word, he is very obedient, although he is not that, suppose, intelligent enough or matured enough to understand good or bad, but at least suppose the kid is understanding what his parents are saying and he's following at least, okay, whether he has to do something or he does not have to do something. But suppose he, after a few months or few days, he grown up and then he has some of his friends circles. And in that friend circle, some of his friends are having different attitude, different character, different habits, because their maybe circumstances are different, their environments are different, or probably their upbringings are different. And then suppose that kid is seeing a difference in his behavior, his habits compared to the other of the friends. Then now it completely depends on that kid, how he is taking it. Many a times what we have seen, if I remember my childhood, many a times some of our friends says, they even blackmail sometimes. Blackmail means, oh, you cannot do this. Come on, we are friends. For friendship, you can do this, right? And many times such kind of things, I mean, be it, I'm referring here mostly on the bad side, the bad habits. Things start on that kind of thing for most of the people. If there is no control from that person at that time point, even if his purpose is different, but because of being caught in emotional, emotional blackmail or emotional attachment to his friends, his habits can change, be it plus point or even in negative side. Many a times we have seen in movies also, we have seen that suppose there is a guy who fell in love with a girl, and that guy is a bad guy in the sense he does all the fightings only on the streets and this and that, but just on the basis of what his girlfriend or the wife or somebody known loved one tells him, no, please don't do this, change your habit. So his habit changes. He changes his habit because it comes completely from within. And of course, that is linked to the purpose also. So I think it's on both the sides. It depends at what maturity level we are talking about. If a person is matured enough, and then whatever he is attaining or experiencing his habits, it's completely, or many times, in fact, it is linked with his purpose. But at the time when the person is not matured, I think it is not always driven by the purpose. It's just like this because of something else. Abhinav.
Yeah, thank you, Subhashi. That makes a lot of sense. And perhaps, VAG, as you reflect on this one, perhaps you could also illuminate us on, we're starting to enter the part of a conversation where, we're starting to talk about purpose and the different forces which can, take someone away from their purpose and bring them back, and the different peer pressure and emotional pressure, which Subhashi talked about. And I'm wondering, what are the primary habits, perhaps after you reflected on what Subhashi has mentioned, if you could just illuminate us on the primary habits which Vihangam Yoga speaks about and spirituality speaks about, what purpose are they aligned with? What do they really help us do?
Great question. And okay, and that pretty much hits the prime objective of today's satsang, right? We're all old enough, wise enough, hopefully, to clearly understand good versus bad habits. And Vihangam Yoga meditation practice or Vihangam Yoga philosophy provides a very good platform in addressing, cultivating more and more good habits, and more importantly, how one can address their bad habits and get rid of them. I've been fortunate enough to be one among those who, like most of them, have and still have a good family to support, who have given me a great platform. But in the ages of growing and till gaining or attaining or maturing, we like many, I also cultivated those bad habits, which the principles of Vihangam Yoga made it extremely easy for me to get over those. And when we talk about these principles or the pillars of Vihangam Yoga practice, basically those that come to my mind are, of course, Satsang, this media, something that we are currently part of right now, various other congregations that I was happy, fortunate to be associated with some really wonderful, like-minded people. So Satsang is a great platform, one of the pillars that provides as a resource. Sadhna, of course, the meditation practice itself, which does tremendous, miracles, which I personally have experienced. Then there is the most important, the Seva, which is the selfless service, which primarily transforms an individual to be the ideal candidate in addressing one's bad habits and converting them into good, as well as developing and nourishing many, many more good habits. And of course, Swadhyay, or education. These are, I would say, the main four pillars of Vihangam Yoga philosophy and practice. Subhashi, do you think you wanted to add anything to that?
Yeah, thanks, Vijayji. From Vihangam Yoga point of view, or I think otherwise also, these four pillars, Seva, Sadhna, Satsang, and Swadhyay, are very important. If we see carefully, all these four elements, Swadhyay means education, or we can say self-study, self-introspection. Satsang means congregating at one place and meditating together and discussing about the truth. Sadhana is meditating at different stages, and Seva is the service. Uh, these four elements definitely helps everyone, every individual, no matter at what level, what type of habit that person has. If someone is having bad habit, these four will help him to eradicate all those bad habits. All means actually all bad habits. And if someone is having none bad habit, which is very rare, but even if he has most of the time good habits, these four practices will help that person to sustain with those good habits. Because in this modern world, and not only this time, previous also, there are so many external factors involved with us, around us, that we cannot control them. And one way or another, many a times, it comes a situation where our habit can be shaken. Even if it is a good habit, it can be shaken by the environment around us. How to be strengthened at that time point, not to be shaken, not to be disturbed because of those environments. It may be possible that at one time a single individual may not have that much of a strength or capability to sustain, but if we practice regularly the meditation, the doing seva, the Swadhyay, the self study, and the Satsang as well, I'm more than 100% sure that that individual person will never ever deviate from his good habits or something else. Swamiji has mentioned at one place in Swarved, I think if I remember correctly, it is the 27th verse of first chapter of first mandal, where he mentioned, uh, मना क्षणिक वैराग ले चढ़े उत्तुंग आकाश तुरत राग में गिरत है सदगुरु something vinash sadguru jiva vinash. That means the mind works very differently and strangely if it is not controlled properly. Sometimes it can show us such a good thing at one time that we feel like, oh, we are at the top of this world, we are at the peak of this world, no one can beat me or no one can defeat me at that point. But at the same time, because of our habits, because of the characteristics of the mind, because of the nature of the mind, it simply pulls us in all different bad habits also. And if we are not controlled at that time point from these four activities, what you just mentioned, seva, sadhana, satsang, and swadhyay, it is very difficult to come back again to the top side. Hence, I think these four tools are really a real tool for any individual to implement in the life to protect, to save the life per se. Vijayji, Abhinavji, please.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting to me because, I think I just want to pick up one of the words that Vijayji used, which is miracle. And, as a person who's personally kind of attempted to go through this path, I'd just like to really echo that. Like, when we say miracle, like, we're really just saying that it's miraculous when you look at the person you used to be and the person you've seen to have become. And it's such an organic process where, the personal experience which I have had and I'd like to kind of discuss with yourself as well, Subhashji and Vijayji, is, to me, it seems like the practice of these four pillars, it doesn't change you per se, but it gives you the capacity to change and to direct the change you want to have in your life. It's not like if I start doing seva today, then tomorrow I'm going to be, a certain kind of person. To me, it seems like it makes me so self-aware of who I am and what I want to do with my energy and time that, I can then start to practice self-control. I can start to balance my life and I can direct my life more meaningfully. At least, perhaps I'm not explaining it as well, but it seems like a personal experience I've had, and I'd like to understand what both of you have to say about this. Like, do you feel that these four pillars are one of the things that they give you is this capacity to change and direct change in your life? So perhaps we could start with Subhashi and then see what Vijayji has to reflect on.
Thanks, Abhinavji. Whatever I will speak, I think I will speak on the basis of my own experiences. since I have been practicing meditation, Vihangam Yoga meditation, since my childhood. And of course, wherever I get an opportunity to do seva, I have been doing that as well. Satsang is very prime, where I try to involve myself to be a part of satsang as much as possible. Along with this, I think the most important one, what I always believe, is the Swadhyay. So sadhana is one activity, one effort from my side to put on, and that is completely based on me. Of course, it depends on what kind of environment around me is also available, but at the same time, how much habit I have. I consider that as a habit. Doing sadhana, doing meditation on a regular basis, daily basis, morning and evening, I consider that as a habit. Whether I'm continuing that habit or not, that completely depends on me, but that I'm considering as a habit for me. Seva is, of course, it is as and when the opportunity is provided. But of course, if someone who really wants to do seva, he can find one way or another to do seva. Why I'm emphasizing on Swadhyay is because we do lots of things here and there, but are we really giving some time sitting alone, introspecting ourselves or not? Because when we are in society, when we are talking to people, when we are with someone, at least one person, it may be possible that we are not original. We are not original. We can behave in a way, I'm considering it in a good way, just for creating impression to other people or to the society that I'm like this, I'm like that, or not. But the real you is actually when you are alone. No one sees you. No one is around you. What you are doing, what is your habit at that time point, what is your thinking, what is your behavior about yourself, how you think about others, that is the real you, I think. And we need to introspect that sitting alone to understand what we do, how we do. This I consider as one of the Swadhyay as well. We are studying ourselves. At the same time, when we read Swarved, try to understand its couplets, but just reading is not enough. Swadhyay means doing self-study, or education means once we read something, we have to implement those things in our life also. If I tell my son, don't tell a lie, okay, fine. But if at the same time I tell a lie, it's just simply not acceptable. So what I consider it as, when we do when we do sadhana, when we do satsang, when we do seva, all these four are linked to Swadhyay. I consider that as a study for myself as an individual, that how good I am doing all those performances. Whether I need to increase something, whether I need to balance myself more, whether I need to do something else so that I can become more and more better and better day by day. That comes under Swadhyay. And really Swarved, really, I'm telling you, really Swarved helps a lot. I think at one time I had mentioned the words of Swarved is so, I'm using the word magical, that, I mean, it impacts our mind, it impacts our body, it impacts our soul itself very differently as against all the bad things what nature brings in front of us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Subhashi. I think that's a very, very poignant point which you've made there, which is the kind of self-reflection and the self-study, and how vital that is in the process. And I'd love to hear also from Vijayji, like on this point, what are your reflections on kind of this concept we're discussing, which is the capacity to change, the capacity to direct your life through these different processes, such as self-study?
Thank you, Abhinavji. I pretty much agree with what Subhashi was saying and what role Swadhyay plays. I tend to agree to most extent, but at the same time, I would really say, like Subhashi said, they're intertwined. All these four S's, the Swadhyay, the Seva, the Satsang, and Sadhana, they're like the four limbs. They are all required to pretty much get the objective. Of course, Swadhyay or self study of oneself. That's basically what the pursuit of every one of us on this forum is, to introspect, understand the true purpose of each of our lives, our goals, everything. Finally, if we agree or disagree, boils down to what one looks forward to or looks for himself. That self, whether it's cultivated through your people surrounding you or your well-wishers, finally, it boils down to what one wants for oneself. So understand, Swadhyay plays a key role. But not all might be fortunate, or not all times it will be possible for one to understand or achieve one is looking for through self-introspection. These other tools, like, say, for example, with the role a satsang plays. Not satsang is a congregation of like-minded people, but not all are at the same, I would say, level or a level of understanding or level of contribution in a group. They're all different personalities with different perspectives. And by being in association with the underlying like-minded objective, people can get, admired. They can admire people. They can be benefited and indirectly provide the fuel for Swadhyay of the person. Similarly, meditation. How does meditation or sadhana play a role? The sadhana plays a role by how does satsang play a role in sadhana? Or how come service or seva play a role in satsang? They're all intertwined. For example, if we take you're in a satsang, you talk about, you come across people, you come across and you get in touch with folks who have been practicing meditation, let it be Vihangam yoga or any other meditation, that inspires you, hearing and seeing the transformations in them. And that indirectly helps you in your sadhana practice. Or the seva, or the service, the selfless service one does, inspires someone to be in the company of such individuals. Indirectly, you become part of that satsang of these selfless people. So in a nutshell, basically what I'm trying to say is all these different pillars of seva, satsang, sadhana, and swadhyay are intertwined in one another, and all these play a huge role in obtaining the clear objective of the point we're trying to drive in today's discussion. And as beautifully described in survey, is these play a vital role for the upliftment of soul and most importantly, achieving one's objective in life and the purpose.
Yeah, thank you, PJG. And in the interest of time, we'll leave it here for this week. And at this stage, I'd just like to thank both Subhashji and VJG for joining us. We had a bit of a tricky session with some of our technical difficulties, but thank you both for jumping on and helping us think through these things.
Thank you, Abhinavji.
All right, awesome. So
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, VAG. And let's put our hands together now and listen to the Shanti part, and perhaps put our hands together, think through what we heard about today, and listen to the Shanti part, and we'll go towards a quick summary for this week.
विराग त्याग की शांति हो, उदासीनता शांति, सेवा जित शिष्य शांति हो, सत्य शांति हो शांति। हे प्रभु शांति स्वरूप हो, शांति शांतिमय शांति, शांति शांति जन शांति हो, पूर्ण शांतिमय शांति। हे प्रभु शांति प्रदान कर, दूर हो सर्व अशांति, देव सदा फल शांति में, शांति शांति सुख शांति। हे प्रभु शांति प्रदान कर, दूर हो सर्व अशांति, देव सदा फल शांति में, शांति शांति सुख शांति।
So that brings us towards the end of another session of the Hangam Yoga Global Online Satsang. I hope we all have something to take away from today. Perhaps there's some questions which we can all work through as we go through our next coming week. I know some of the things I'm going to be thinking about are, what is my purpose? What am I motivated by? And are the things I'm doing with my time, are the habits I've developed, are they conducive to these things? VAG and Sapashi today, they explained to us the 4 principles and pillars of spirituality. So pillars, to be more precise, of Swadhyay, Satsang, Sadhna, Seva. And, these are all intertwined, as VAG also mentioned at the end. And the purpose of each of these, as we've kind of understood today, ultimately is to reconnect us with where we want to go with our lives, and to continuously introspect, to continuously evolve, and to continuously reflect, am I going on the path which I want to be going on? And eventually, as this process comes to a culmination, we find ourselves in a state of permanence and bliss. So thank you everyone for joining us this week, and join us again next week for another session on the secrets from the Swarved. Jai Sudev, and see you next week.